Hey, family.
Hey Jerome, how are you?
Hey, man. I'm lovely, man. I'm lovely. We over here I was just vibing. I told him I was inspired by you and Gerald tonight.
Oh man, that is so beautiful. I heard like maybe 3 minutes of a story that you were telling, and I could tell it was powerful.
Yeah, it took me down memory lane just listening to you and Gerald tonight. And the stories that y'all were telling, it just really was reminiscent. And I'm glad that y'all shared what you shared and talked about what you talked about because it's a topic that I feel like still needs to be touched on today. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Oh man, you're more than welcome. And it is something that will have to be expounded upon many more times.
Hmm. Hmm. Man, man. You touched on something too earlier, Seth. You talked about repetition.
Mm.
And through the repetition, like repetition, they say is the mother of learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Exactly.
it's so important.
It is. And some people take issue with like, oh man, this guy says the same things over and over again. But that's that's the purpose behind teaching is you're trying to instill a message.
Hmm.
The goal of being a teacher is to not say something different all the time. It's to drive something home, drive a point home,
Hmm.
and we bear our message through repetition.
Hmm. Yeah. All the greats did that, you
All of
know?
them, all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny too because like I know that you also enjoy reading the world scriptures. And for me, whenever I read someone like Jesus or Buddha, the way that they speak to their, you could call them their followers or whatever, but the way that they speak to their immediate, people in their vicinity is so funny because, like Jesus, for instance, he kind of lashes out at times because none of his disciples understand what he's saying, and
Hmm.
he'll say something like, how long are you going to be foolish? Like he's not afraid to go there.
Hmm.
Basically saying like, how are you not getting this?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Seth, speaking of the scriptures, I read the one that you gave me, the
Oh, how
book,
was it?
the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I was highlighting all through it, you know?
Yeah.
It, the
That's such a
story of Arjuna.
yes, that's such a powerful little book, man. It's only 18 chapters, but my gosh, there's so much in there.
Hmm. Hmm. There was a part in there I remember that I highlighted, and it was talking about how discernment is like a sword that cuts through illusion.
Mm,
Does that resonate with you?
yeah, definitely. Because I feel like there's a and I've gotten into this like whenever I still had my original account, but I feel like, and I'm gonna try to not be so hostile anymore. I used to kind of have this like angry hostility about me, but I feel like in certain circles there is a tendency to kind of think that there is no right or wrong. And to me, whenever I hear something like that, I hear that that individual has no discernment and
Mm,
that they are actually falling for many illusions.
mm,
I feel like if you can't like see, judgment is not bad in my opinion. You have to have the ability to discern, which that's what judgment is. You're making a judgment call. You're discerning, with the context that you have, you're discerning right from wrong. Is this beneficial? Will this harm me? You have to judge. This is how you navigate the physical realm. This is part of the game of life. This is part of your hero's journey. You have to make choices. You have to discern.
mhm,
So, like actually having discernment, it is a sword, and you do slice through the illusions.
mm,
Um, However, if you kind of fall for some of these traps here in the Matrix, where you think like, oh, there's nothing right, there's nothing wrong, everything is valid. you're more likely to fall into some dangerous pits that'll be very difficult for you to crawl out of.
Mm. So how did you make that connection with discernment when it came to, I like how y'all called it strategic celibacy.
That's all Gerald, man. He came up with that.
So where did your discernment come in when it came to that, and how did that play a role?
Well, Gerald really brought up the topic, and then I was just like, oh, wow, that's actually something really great that we should talk about. Because, any kind of weighty subject matter like that naturally connects to so many other ideas. It just made a great conversation piece. So, but as far as discernment, when you're talking about strategic celibacy, you're talking about going a period of time where you're not seeking a relationship and you just want to be with yourself and you want to, explore your own consciousness and you want to transcend your lower self and you're really, trying to progress on your spiritual path. That's basically what it's all about. But, it almost takes, this is kind of paradoxical because it almost takes a higher consciousness to even realize that thought.
Mm.
Someone who's struggling in kind of like lower frequencies, they're not really gonna entertain that thought unless someone brings it to them first, like a teacher or a friend, a mentor, a spiritual text, some kind of shamanic encounter for them to embrace the hero's journey. It's kind of hard to discern higher knowledge when you're living at a lower frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not so much that see, none of us do any of this alone. It's actually quite beautiful. Like we're all in this together. And kind of how the Buddha says, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm not as eloquent as he, but he says something along the lines of, I can only point the way, but you must walk the path. And I find it so beautiful because we're all basically like little Buddhas, all pointing different ways and all walking different paths.
Mm-hmm.
And we really are, I really do think ultimately everyone is good deep down. We've just been, on an individual basis, everyone is damaged and traumatized in a different way. And some people are more damaged than others. But I sincerely believe that 99.7% of humanity is doing the absolute best with what they know how to do. Very few people wake up and just try to be the absolute worst human being, deep down we are we understand on a subconscious level that we are so much more than just flesh and bone. I feel like most people are good people. And they want to progress in this life. They don't want to stagnate and die a horrible death and waste their sexual energy and, just make a bunch of unwise choices. Everyone's doing the best they can with what they know. The problem is not everyone has a higher context until, someone shares it with them.
Right, right. I agree. And what do you feel like was that higher context for you, or if it came in the form of a mentor, if it came in the form of a message or even a person, who was that, and when did you receive that higher context?
As far as this sexual energy, man, it's really a combination of all of those things. But I can actually pinpoint one specific person who helped me tremendously, although he was no sage by any means, which makes this story even more beautiful because he was just a regular guy.
Yeah.
This story is actually really funny to me, but I was working at a coffee shop.
Okay.
And this was 8 years ago, because this is whenever I began my, sexual energy path. And this kid named Slater was working with me. He was a 16-year-old kid.
Okay.
And I'm 22 at the time. And I'll say this, at that point in time, I was ejaculating to pornography, online porn every single night. It's how I fell asleep. It's how I would put myself to sleep at night.
Yeah.
It became, at first it was a routine, but then it became an addiction. And so that's where I was at. Well, as life would have it, all of us being basically extensions of source consciousness, living a human life, we are bound to be presented higher knowledge at some point, no matter how disgusting our current situation is. Mm-hmm. So here I am jerking off to porn every night and not really living intentionally, not really, trying to know better and do better, just being complacent and just sticking with what I've been doing. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, this kid named Slater, who I was working afternoons with a couple of the weekdays, he starts mentioning something called NoFap. Mm-hmm. And you see, back then, like 8-9 years ago, this was a huge challenge. It wasn't like it is today, where it's like everyone has already heard about it and it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever, NoFap, I've heard about that. Back then it was like, NoFap? Oh, you mean you're gonna go 30 days without porn? That's crazy, man. You're insane. You're insane. Like, all your friends are kind of like saying like, oh, you're not gonna make it. Well, I was intrigued by this because here I am, I'm like 22. This kid's 16 and he's talking about, yeah, I'm going to go 30 days without porn. And I was like, you know what, man? That resonates with me, because every time that I watch porn and I ejaculate, I feel disgusted with myself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, like in the moment, yeah, sure, it's fun and you're watching all these videos and blah, 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 and it's entertaining and whatever. But immediately afterwards, you always have that thought, like, what did I just do?
Right, exactly.
And it's like shame and guilt and just disgust. And sometimes even like, there's like dark humor there too. You have to laugh at yourself, because it's just like, if you saw yourself in third person doing what you just did, it's like, what are you doing with yourself, man? So I was intrigued by what Slater was sharing, and he actually wasn't even sharing it directly with me. He was just talking about it to another coworker. And I overheard. I overheard.
Okay.
And like, I'm a very introverted kind of like, kind of keep to myself kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And so it took a lot for me to turn around and be like, yo, what are you talking about? But I did it. Because I was intrigued, and I was like, man, I've never see, this is like, if you study the hero's journey, this was the call to adventure, or the call to action, or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. But it was an indirect call to adventure, because Slater didn't walk up to me as like a master and tell me, about semen retention. He was talking to someone else and I overheard. But that was everything for me, because that's what opened this gateway. And then it was a combination from that point forward of finding different spiritual texts, and also just like specific books later down the road. Cupid's Poisoned Arrow is a fantastic book. But yeah, it's really like very synchronistic, because once you hear a little bit of higher knowledge and then you take that first step, you get little nuggets from a million other places as you continue forward. Yeah. And then, like me and Gerald were talking about earlier, sometimes you have to take one step back after you've already taken 2 steps forward, to realize that you were doing the right thing by going forward.
Yes.
So like, you'll go like, I made the 30 days, but then by day 31, I had this, like, it was my, I like to call my, so this is kind of getting into like a mystical understanding of Christianity, but I like to call the devil my altered ego. Not my ego itself. My ego itself is my own personal consciousness, the consciousness that allows me to say, I did this, I did that. It's neutral. My ego is neutral. My altered ego is the devil. And you can think about this as like when Jesus fasted in the desert for 40 days and the devil tempted him. This was like his own lower nature teasing him, tempting him, egging him on. That's what happened to me. I made it the 30 days and I was like, I nailed this challenge. It was easier than I thought it would be, blah, blah, blah. Day 31, I was like, I'm going to celebrate by ejaculating. And I justified it. But the reason why I even mentioned that is I had to take that step back after taking those 2 steps forward to realize, yo, that was the way. Like what I just accomplished is what I should be doing, and I had to make this mistake in order to realize it.
Yeah, this is the way. So and you saw it, yeah.
And it happens again and again in different ways with different variables and different situations, but you kind of have that, you know, you always come back to the same lessons. They're just slightly different, but it's always, you know, it could be 10 steps forward and 1 step back. You know, it's not always just 2 steps. It could be 90 steps forward and 1 step back. But there's always that subtle, like the pendulum always swings the other way.
And you were just aware enough to catch it.
Just enough, man. I barely caught it. You know, because a lot of people, when they first hear this information, all they do is laugh at it and then move on. They don't entertain it. They don't, you know, ask questions. It's not interesting to them. It's just sort of like, you're insane. I'm going to go watch porn right now because that's how insane you are. And then it's just whatever. You can't convince anybody. The information is just not on their wavelength.
Man. So when you said that you had gotten to the point, and I resonate, where it was how you got to sleep at night. You know, would you say that at that point, it was a part of you, like a part of your identity?
I would say that it wasn't necessarily, because I'm always been like, this may sound kind of strange, but I've always been conscious of like what I'm doing. Okay. Like I'm very in my head all the time. I've always been this way my entire life. Like literally, if I'm walking down the hall, my self-talk is like, I'm walking down the hall. Like whenever I was watching porn, it's like, okay, I'm watching this video. Like I know, like it sounds bizarre to narrate this, but this is what goes on in my head. And so like in the moment, it's not really something that I identified with, but it's something that I knew I was addicted to. And I guess deep down I knew like this doesn't serve me and I know that I should stop. But for the longest time, I never even attempted to stop.
Right.
We're talking about from like, you know, I mentioned in the live with Gerald, I can't remember if I was 11 or 12, but somewhere in there, I found my first porn magazine. And then like my family had dial-up internet at the time. So if someone was on the phone, you couldn't use the internet and, you know, all that fun stuff. Well, like it quickly progressed from dial-up to like we had routers and then, you know, the high speed, man. And the internet just became like a whole different monster. And of course, you know, it's really not a monster. It's a tool and you can use it or misuse it like anything. But I misused it. I misused it to a great extent. And did a lot of damage to myself, but I crawled out of that hole. And it took me years, but like you're talking about watching porn from the age 12 to 22. And that's with daily ejaculations. Daily ejaculations for 10 years. I'm scared to even type that number out.
I just said the same thing. I told them, you know, it was like at least a decade, you know.
At least.
Yeah.
And like, you know, if I'm being completely honest, some days it was multiple times, not just once.
Right.
And once a day, that's scary enough with those numbers. So, you know, I mean, just to make it more accurate, it's probably closer to 2 times a day for 10 years, which is just, I mean, that alone will make you believe in the just absolute beauty of the human body and how it's always trying to regenerate itself. The fact that it can take that much punishment and still live it's a testament to the infinite consciousness that dwells within the bodily temple.
And even when you speak about consciousness, Seth, I found it. And first of all, I love what you said about being able to take yourself out of yourself and kind of turn the camera around and look at yourself from another angle and be that observer and say, am I doing this right now? Like, why am I doing this right now? And I had to do that. There were several times I remember doing that, and it was like I still couldn't. And you know, it's like the whole progressive thing. I think you told me about this one time. The law of diminishing returns.
Yeah. Yes.
Did it become progressive with the high-speed internet and then new things like with the mentality of not getting the same reaction off of the same? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a huge reason why young men get addicted to online pornography specifically. It's a lot harder to actually get addicted to, say, a magazine, because a magazine is it's kind of vanilla. Like it doesn't really it's like, oh, that, like, she's attractive, but it doesn't give you an extra hit every time you look at it. Whereas when you literally have access to who knows how many like free porn sites there are, but there's an insane amount.
Countless.
Yeah, and they're all in 4K and they're all free and 60 frames per second and all this. It's all free because it's a tool meant to control you. And yeah, the thing is, with the law of diminishing returns, let's say, the first time you're like 12 years old, you hop on the computer and like you don't even know about these websites. You're just Googling, hot girl cheerleader or something, whatever you're looking at. And it starts there, and then it very soon is just a downward spiral where you end up on these sites and just watching crazy shit. Pardon my language.
No,
but
yeah.
but it never gets more innocent when you're exposed to this stuff. It just gets more and more grotesque. And if you don't have the consciousness of, like, at least being aware that you're doing this to yourself and being destructive, then it's even more destructive because you don't even know what you don't know.
Right.
And so it's crazy, man. The law of diminishing returns is basically like, you watch one video and it really appeals to you. It gets you excited in all the right, mental highways, and your adrenal glands are firing up, like you're just fully excited, your heart's racing, and you feel like you're in the scene. It's kind of like watching a movie. Like, sometimes you really resonate with the hero and whatever. Well, we are storytelling creatures, so like whenever we watch erotic content, we like to pretend that we're involved. And so all of those, those neural pathways are really firing, and we're kind of living in a fantasy. It's an illusion. It's all just pixels. And but let's say a week later you try to watch the same video.
No.
Well, it's not going to quite do it for you because you've already been exposed to every frame of that, and you can't watch something again for the first time, unfortunately. Right. So then you have to find something slightly more stimulating, or just a lot more. Slightly. Just slightly. Or you can make the jump and watch something crazy, like more stimulating. But then
that usually happens due to the algorithm and everything that happens with,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because some of the stuff in the sidebar or like the related video or whatever, sometimes it's not really similar at all, and it's like some crazy stuff, and you click on it and then you're seeing something you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, that's what and you can't unsee what you saw.
No, I still have stuff burned into my mind
because you know what you saw, and you saw that. You know? So it's like, even if you click off real quick, the damage is done.
Yeah. No, it's so true though. And like the law of diminishing returns, basically, like for anyone listening, you're not going to get the same thing out of visiting the same, whether it's, a video. I mean, videos are more relevant because we're in the age of the internet, but like, you're never going to get the same dopamine hit from the same content over and over again. The only thing I can really say that disagrees with that is like maybe reading like a spiritual text, because every time you read a spiritual text, you get something out of it, something different out of it, and it does kind of speak to you in different ways every single time, because it's a living thing, a living, breathing document.
Right.
It's almost like these world scriptures, when you're not reading them as like dogma, they're like quantum texts that speak to your soul. But like pornography, it really just speaks to your lower nature. And like, yeah, if you watch one kind of video, before you know it, you're watching like some really taboo stuff that would really like freak your mom out, and make your whole family just kind of like worry about you.
And if you're able to turn the camera around, did there ever come a point where you started to worry about yourself?
Yeah, all the time. Every night, because I have that self-talk in my head, every night I would have this debate with myself, you know, why are you doing this? And then I would say, well, because this is how I make myself tired. This is how I fall asleep. I can't fall asleep. This is the storytelling aspect.
Yeah.
I can't fall asleep if I don't ejaculate. And, you know, I had this, it's like the angel and the devil on your shoulder from like old cartoons. That's exactly what it was like. But it was every night, and I didn't have the inner fortitude to just say, you know what, I'm not going to do this, until I heard Slater talking about the NoFap challenge.
Yes. Yes.
And that was like such a divine encounter, even though it was an indirect encounter, because that was a huge turning point in my whole life. It changed the trajectory of my entire life. But again, you know, I had some inkling of awareness to accept the challenge. It's not easy. It was never easy. It's still not easy. But this path is so... I mean, this life is beautiful. These kinds of conversations are beautiful.
I agree.
And shout out to Slater. I don't think he's watching, but you never know. But bro,
yeah, man. May he ever know, you know, what change he engendered, man. Just for that conversation, just off to the side, you know, never even knew that. This is why I'm talking about this. It's like, you don't know who needs to hear this.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And I didn't even mention this. To him, it was like, because he wasn't really like after any kind of like spiritual benefits per se or anything like this. It was a joke to him. Like he heard about it from his friends, and they all kind of I guess they heard about it from Reddit, because Reddit is that online forum, and they have literally like any subject that you want to research, there's a subreddit for it. So there was this NoFap subreddit, and they found out about this 30-day challenge. So he was bringing it up to that other coworker, and I overheard him. But when they were talking about it, he was sort of like mocking the idea. But in my mind, because every night I was having this inner battle between that devil on my shoulder and like my true self. And I knew that what I was doing was not serving me. When I heard him say this NoFap challenge, that reframed the whole thing for me, because I was like, man, I've already been arguing with myself. Now this is the time to take, you know, that first step.
Wow, Seth. So you telling me the dirt on his shoulder was the monkey on your back?
Yeah, man.
Are y'all hearing this? I hope y'all are hearing this. You know what I'm saying? The dirt on your shoulder could be the monkey on someone's back.
Yeah.
And they might have had that monkey on their back a long time.
A long time.
And had been depleted to the point where they mentally don't have the strength or the will enough to break it consciously, you know? That they've gotten to the point where they don't even have enough strength to let go. But you found a way out through someone else saying, hey, there's a door right here. Did you know? Did you know there's a door over here? You're like, what? That door exists? I can actually walk through that door?
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
man.
it's right here. It's right here.
I gotta say, it reminds me whenever you came to visit me in Galveston,
Hmm.
we were talking about Skyrim and other RPGs.
Yeah.
And I'm not even gonna lie, bro. Like, okay, so art imitates life, and
Hmm.
this life feels like an RPG to me.
Hmm.
It's like a real video game.
Yeah, we're increasing the stats and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, exactly, bro. You're increasing your stats, and then like, there's little clues and stuff too, all around us. Like, if you stumble upon astrology, if you're fortunate enough to stumble upon astrology or like human design or numerology, any of these tools, um, you can basically find out your strengths and weaknesses that you came into this game experience with.
Hmm.
Like your birth chart is your character. Like
Hmm.
that's you, the character that you're playing.
Yeah.
That's your strengths and your weaknesses. And like if you have the awareness to appreciate that, it will carry you so far.
Hmm.
But this experience feels like a game because like the whole thing with Slater, I felt like I had just been given a quest.
Yeah, side quest. Yeah.
Yeah, side quest. Exactly, because it was like an indirect thing. I just overheard a conversation, and
Right.
then like you just pointed out, a door opened for me, and I had to walk through it.
Hmm.
I was compelled internally to walk through this door that I didn't know existed,
Hmm.
but there it was, and what a ride it has been.
Achievement unlocked.
Yeah, and hopefully I've raised some of my stats.
Hmm. I'd say so. I definitely say so, man. And it's like funny, yeah, you would be on the journey in the game, and there'd be like somebody talking to somebody, some random passerby, and you didn't have to stop. You
Exactly.
could still continue on the main quest, you could still keep doing what you're doing, but if you were so inclined, you might just, what are they talking about? You go over to the guy and then it zoom in on him, and then he
Mm-hmm.
tells you about what the quest is all about. You're like, you know what? Let me go on this journey. This sounds interesting right now. This is cool.
Yeah,
And you never know. You could get something that could help you on your main quest on the side quest.
exactly, bro. And like that is so deep to actually internalize, to realize. Because I mean, like you were saying earlier, someone could just mention a passing comment
Mm-hmm.
and it could change your whole life. And you never know who needs to hear what you're sharing or what
Right.
someone else is sharing. But like also something funny about the RPG comparison is
Mm-hmm.
like you'll be on your main quest and you'll be doing all of the right things,
Mm-hmm.
and then like the Dark Brotherhood comes and visits you and like tempts you to go down a different path.
Yep.
And then you say, "Well, I've been doing such a good job. Now I'm kind of curious what it would be like to be a little evil and do
Mm-hmm.
some bad." And
Mm-hmm.
then you start playing devil's advocate and you're like, yeah, I'm kind of curious now. Let's go see what this secret society is up to.
Mm-hmm.
And then you join them and then you figure out what they're doing and this, and then you're like, maybe that's not for me. Maybe I want to, leave. And like, this is how we learn: two
Yeah.
steps forward, one step back.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have to make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that too. And I think it was Oblivion.
Yeah.
And it was either Oblivion or Skyrim, but I remember that I was in a fight, in an altercation, and somebody got in the way or something, and I might have shot a fireball, and it hit one of the townsfolk, you
Yeah.
know, and the townsfolk's like, ugh, you know, and they died, right? And I was like, oh, I didn't even mean to, to hurt them, but the guy was gone. The decision was made, and then when I went to sleep, I woke up and one of the Dark Brotherhood was staring at me in the face. It was like, yo, we seen what you did.
Yeah.
Don't think we weren't watching. We were watching you. We come with we got something for you. We got a place for you. We got a hideout. So yeah, like they say, temptation is always leaning on the doorbell, but usually opportunity comes by and it just, you know.
Yep.
And for you, that was that guy. That was him. That was the little knock that you were there to hear, the knock over the doorbell that was always ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. You know, we all have that
Mm-hmm.
doorbell in our lives. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing was, you know, I guess internally I was already on this journey. I was already heading that way, albeit slowly. But for me to hear it externally in my real world, and not, you know, not on the internet, not, you know, on some forum, I heard it from a real life human that I worked with.
Yeah.
It was a kickstart that I needed for my external journey. And yeah, man, I get chills every time I think about it, because so much time has passed, and it was such a beautiful, it was a small moment, but yet it was like the biggest moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. You know, it gives you chills. It gives me chills when I think, and it was just earlier, right before you hopped on, I had the thought in my mind, like, Jerome, who would you be today if you were still in that frequency? You know,
Oof. Yeah.
like who I would be. You know? I can't answer that question, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the contrast is staggering. I'm, you know, I caught the tail end of one of the stories you were sharing, and you mentioned that you were having to drink Red Bulls just to stay alert at work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, even just that, you know, not even taking into account like other vices, but just drinking Red Bulls. It's like, I can't imagine what that would do over, you know, 5 years, 10 years, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was
It,
still depleting that energy, you know?
yeah,
Even on top of the stimulants to keep me up, I was
yeah.
still doing those things that held me down.
Red Bull gave you wings, but then you cut them off.
Come on now. Come on now. Are y'all hearing this? You telling me, man. You telling me, bro. So
No, it's good to
yeah.
have, it's good to be humorous about it, because we, you know, we learned our lessons, and we're still learning lessons too, but
Right. It's a journey.
it's a journey, yeah. We just have a little bit more awareness today than we did yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thankful, man. I was telling, I commented on y'all's video when you and Jared were talking, and it was like every small victory is like a celebration, you know?
Yeah.
When you're in that state, when you're in that, you know, even just the small win, you got to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Because like you said, every single night, you know, to make the connection between that and going to sleep. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if this, then that. If sleep, then this, you know?
I get, you know, kind of on this same topic of celebrating small victories.
Mm-hmm.
I get, you know, I get messages in my my inbox, more so on my original account. Whenever I had like 9,000, almost 10,000 followers, I was getting messages like this. They would say something along the lines of, "Hey man, I'm only I'm only on, you know, day 7 of retention." They would like minimize their victory, and I'm like, hold up, let
Bro,
me, you know, let me reframe this for you so that you can see how incredible you are.
yeah.
And I would tell them, you know, it's like you're coming from daily ejaculations for who knows how many years, sometimes multiple times a day. For you to go 7 days without releasing your life force, you are absolutely a champion.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't celebrate that, it makes your journey harder.
Yes.
You don't have to be one of these guys that, oh, you hear about semen retention and then boom, you just went 3 years, perfect streak. You never messed up. That's unrealistic. And when you put that much pressure on yourself to be perfect, you fail harder than just the regular guy doing his best.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Say that one more time. So you said when you put that much pressure to be perfect. Say that one more time.
When you put that much pressure on yourself to be perfect right out of the gate, and you try to, you know, you try to make this long streak where you never mess up, you will fail harder than just the regular guy doing his best day to
Mm.
day. you know, and like he's going to make, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 5 steps forward, 1 step back, 10 steps forward, 2 steps back, you know, so on and so forth. The patterns always change subtly, but he's always progressing when you look at the math.
Right.
He's never going into downward spiral anymore. He may dip back into that lower energy for a brief moment, but he always realizes the lesson he already learned, and it cements the lesson. He says, this is the way.
Yes. Yes. That's powerful, bro. That's powerful, man. Without that added pressure of perfection, you know, we can do so much more.
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, perfection really, it's so destructive. The whole idea that you can even be perfect at any task, at any kind of ideal, is destructive. As much as you want it to be constructive and beneficial, it's really detrimental to pretend that you're perfect at anything. It's really like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an illusion. You literally have to convince yourself that you're perfect, because and I'm not talking about your soul. Obviously, you know, your soul is perfect, but like living this human character, we are so frail, and we have so many idiosyncrasies that it's an absolute delusion to pretend that you're perfect at anything. But that's what makes the game so much fun, is that everything is not perfect.
Yes.
and we're not like, we don't have 100. We don't have the 100 skill rating on every attribute.
Exactly.
You know, like life would be so boring if we were perfect at everything.
Right.
We need that contrast of like, oh my gosh, I fucked up really bad. I fucked up so bad right now. Like, we need that contrast to learn the lessons and to appreciate everything else.
Yeah, you know, if I had faced those dragons, you know, with unlimited attributes and infinite stats and all sorts of stuff, the payoff wouldn't have been as great.
No, it wouldn't have, you know, especially, you know, coming out of the dragon battle, you're missing one arm and you're all scarred up and you're burned and you're missing hair, your eyebrows are gone, you know, but you came out alive and that dragon did not.
You slayed the dragon.
You slayed the dragon. And you know what? You know, it's interesting because like almost every movie follows this pattern. If it's not a tragedy, a lot of movies follow the hero's journey, and a lot of them follow it, you know, more directly than others. But like The Hobbit, for instance, like the payoff is so huge in The Hobbit, and I'm talking more so about the books than the movies. But but even the movies, you know, you can follow along. Like, had Bilbo never left home, there would have been zero payoff, because, you know, his whole thing was he wanted to be comfortable. He wanted to eat delicious food and just be cozy in his little hobbit home and never, you know, leave. But it took so much courage for him to step out of his comfort zone. And then not only that, he encountered big spiders and dragons and like crazy stuff that he'd never been subjected to. And he overcame them all.
Right.
Just a humble little hobbit from the Shire. This dude's like slaying spiders that are 10 times his size, confronting dragons. You know, he's meeting other magical creatures like you know, the wood elves and dwarves, and like he's actually living an exciting journey rather than just, you know, sitting at home. But you know what? It's because he accepted the call to adventure, which, you know, harkens back to, like, everyone experiences a call to adventure, no matter if it's a physical journey, like going to a different country. You know, someone presents you an opportunity to, hey, you want to come, you know, to XYZ and do ABC, whatever. Or if it's a challenge to go on NoFap for 30 days, there's always some sort of stimulus to change your reality that's presented to you via a person, a book, some kind of like video you stumble across. This matrix is geared to always have you evolving or devolving.
Mm,
You can never stay stagnant, truly. You're always getting worse or getting better.
I agree. That's why it pays to have ears to hear, and eyes to see an opportunity, to recognize it, to have that awareness.
Yeah.
Because, like we said earlier, with you don't know who needs that message. I'm sure that there's tons of people already who've been affected by your words right now on this live session who didn't know that they were going to, receive this. And then there's some people that might have, heard it and not been ready for it, and then they left.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I will say, like, in my physical reality, like in my immediate what I can observe and whatnot, whenever I've shared any kind of this information, it doesn't matter if it's with my closest friends that I've known since I was 16, or just like, kind of strangers or acquaintances from work or whatever. 99% of them just laugh and carry on, and they never even think twice about it. And but I know that the internet and social media is kind of a different animal because we tend to flow in circles, and there are like little miniature communities here. So if people are tuning in for this live, they're more than likely within like the frequency bandwidth of the things that we're already talking about. So they're more likely to accept certain things,
Right.
as opposed to other people who may not even be close to that frequency band.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Man, thank you so much, man, for coming on here, brother. I appreciate you and everything that you do. Appreciate you speaking on here. We're both, I relate to you a lot because we're both introverts. We both
Yeah.
kind of do things, the way that we do things, and we enjoy the solitude, the alone time. But whenever you do come out and you do speak to the people, it's always a treat to hear you, brother. Yeah.
Man, I got your message a couple of minutes after I shared the video with Gerald. So I just want to say thank you for inviting me on, because you left me that voice message.
Of
And
course.
yeah, I totally agree, man. I have to have my alone time, and you'll see it. You've seen it before, but like I make myself present here in waves. I'll go like a month straight of just doing lives, and then like you won't see me for 6 months,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that's just how I am. I have to become a hermit sometimes. I can't go constantly.
Mm-hmm.
I have to withdraw.
Yeah. Yeah. We're working with, the customization of our avatars,
Yeah.
working with the stats.
Working with the stats, hopefully raising them.
Right. The abilities we've been given. Like you said, it was so powerful what you said about if you have an understanding of what you've been given, what you've been born here with, then that can be so powerful in your life, that can follow you wherever you go.
Yeah, because at least with that knowledge of self, and I'm talking about lowercase self, you have the codes to your human character. At least now you have self knowledge, and this is what all the philosophers, the great philosophers, told us: know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
If you know yourself, now you can handle yourself in whatever situation, at least a little more efficiently than you could otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So this self-knowledge is key. And, a lot of people don't like astrology because they've only been exposed to those corny horoscopes that only talk about your sun sign.
Mm-hmm.
They've never actually explored their whole chart and looked into it. And it's not something you can learn in a day.
Right.
And it's not even something that you have to be an expert at. It's just like, find out your birth chart and look up each of your placements. Even if it's just a simple Google image search, you can find great little summaries of each of those things. And then you'll say, you know what? That really is how I love. That really is how I make decisions. That really is how I think. And that gives you context and self-understanding. Now, whenever you get your next call to adventure, you'll know how to respond because you know yourself a little bit better.
Right. Right. Man. So you could say self-knowledge is like the key that opens all the locks.
All of the locks, every single lock, takes self-knowledge, because self-knowledge is really the key to wisdom.
Mm.
but it's very hard to obtain.
Yeah, someone told me, Seth, they said, wisdom has a price. You have to pay attention.
Yes, that's a bomb right there. That's so true.
And that's what you did. You know, you paid attention.
Yeah, and
What?
you know, and
Mhm.
it's not just me. I mean, anybody listening who's
Right.
on a similar journey,
Yeah.
you paid attention and you
Mhm.
gained wisdom and self-knowledge, and it's something that we should all be celebrating.
Yeah.
I know that these are rough times as far as like what's going on in the physical matrix, and we're all annoyed with all the propaganda and just the events that are playing out. But we need to take a step back and look within and realize how far we've come individually, and realize that we're going somewhere spectacular collectively soon enough. Because we can't keep doing this inner work and not see results.
Mhm.
The results are coming soon.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, I've heard it, I don't know how accurate the math is, but I heard that one person becoming conscious and, like, waking up, as they say, doing the hard inner work, the shadow work, coming to terms with their weaknesses and improving themselves. I've heard that one person doing this hard work, the great work in alchemy, you could say, um, changes the vibration so drastically. It would be like 100,000 people doing something else
Whoa.
to affect the vibration.
Just
It's
one.
Yeah, just one, because your light as a soul is so luminous
Mhm.
that when you recognize who you actually are, capital W, who you actually are, it changes the whole game for everybody, because this is a quantum reality. So one person doing the inner work, it has it has implications across the entire realm. There's this thing called the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Every action has a consequence. And yeah, and the beautiful thing too, I'm gonna butcher this quote, but something along the lines of, like, you imagine yourself as a candle, and it literally costs you nothing to light other candles.
Come on now. We done
Yeah.
talked. You psychic, bro. You psychic, man. All it takes is one, bro. You remembered, man.
All it takes is
Golly.
one.
Just one, bro.
Yeah, man. So I hope there were some beautiful candles listening to this conversation,
Most
and
definitely.
I hopefully someone benefited from this. I know that I have. Talking to you, Jerome, is always therapeutic for me,
Mhm.
and yeah, thank you for inviting me on here. I always enjoy chatting with you.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for bringing it back to the one. Just one light, one candle, one spark.
Yeah,
One moment, one conversation, one live, one step. One day at a time, and just bringing it back to one. You don't have to make huge leaps. You
hmm
can make small steps. And like they
absolutely,
say, it's like it doesn't matter how quickly or how slowly you go, as long as you just don't stop. You just keep going.
absolutely
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you, brother. Yeah. So we'll see you back on in 6 months from now, brother.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Much love, man.
Much love, bro. We'll talk again soon.
All right. All right, family.
All right, enjoy the rest of your night, bro.
You too. You too, man. Awesome.